I probably ought to share a little bit about my particular patient experience. I actually started in healthcare administration in 1979 and started at Olathe Medical Center. And at that point in time, in 79, it was a 100-bed, 30-square-foot hospital. And we had some really growth opportunities. I was very blessed to be able to start as chief operating officer at that facility. And we built a new hospital. It was all very exciting. And we did some things with Sprint Telecommunications, running data through our PBX back in 1987 when we opened the new hospital. And then I got intrigued by technology and joined Sprint. And I got very passionate about the patient experience. I never will forget my administrative residency. The first thing I was assigned to was nursing. And my gosh, that was the best thing that could ever happen to me because I was doing a nursing rotation. And I learned about the heart of nursing and the patient experience. And so one of the first applications I built at Sprint was doing patient experience using IVR technology. And this was before the instance of long distance phone call capabilities. And so we would send out prepaid phone cards after they answered the survey online, and just got phenomenal results from that. And so it's just kind of been in my blood about patient experience. And then I returned to Olathe Health System in 1998, and I was there through 2011, and we really grew our campus. And it's a very interesting campus. It sits on 250 acres and it has everything. It's a continuum model. We have everything from acute care, from a rehab hospital to a skilled nursing home, independent living, and we even partnered with a community college to build a medical careers campus. So it was a really vertically integrated model, and we did that actually with HCAHPS and architects. And so I got intrigued by architecture and merged into that. And then I was missing healthcare operations, so I joined a for-profit healthcare system and oversaw multiple surgery centers and hospitals. And then my parents started having some health issues, and I decided to move into something that was not in day-to-day management. So I got involved in Sphere 3 4 years ago, and it was purchased by Critical Alert back in April. And I'm the hospital executive strategist and enjoying working with hospitals all across the United States. I would also like to take a moment to recognize we also have some Canadian participants on our webinar. And I'm going to have a couple of thoughts regarding your particular healthcare industry and being slightly different than the United States, but patient experience is certainly a universal phenomenon we need to be focused. So I thought I would share with you today probably the most impactful rounding moment of my 25 years of rounding. And it's kind of funny, I say 25 years because the concept of rounding didn't even exist. Our organization fell in love with Tom Peters' Search of Excellence. And he had his theory of management by walking around. And one time I had the opportunity to visit a patient in critical care, a gentleman who from my management by walking around and visiting with him, had a chronic health disease and was coming to our hospital on a regular basis. And so I would say, man, you got to go through this process. You're in ICU for about 3 or 4 days, and it ends up being a 10 to 12 day stay by the time you go home. How do you get motivated when you're in critical care to want to go outside? And so he loved being outside. He loved gardening. And so, I had that conversation with him before on many occasions, and when he was in our hospital, and then we were building a new ICU. And so we were kind of restricted by real estate, but every patient room has to have a window. And so what we did is I thought of that conversation with that patient. He said, "I love to see the garden, like to see outside." So what we did was create this ICU garden where we could actually roll patients out in beds to be outside and enjoy the fresh air if they're viable to do that clinically. And so today I still get the reward of thinking, wow, every patient gets to see outside while in critical care today. So I found that, just one of my most impactful moments. And I think a comment that I'd like to share with you is from Stephen Covey is, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And, in healthcare, and it is such a ongoing minute-by-minute moment situation. And so I think I reflect, and it said, yeah, hopefully you get better soon and go outside is what I could say to our patient. But I had the pleasure of telling him that we're getting back and getting back into providing patients a view of the outside world while they're in the hospital. So let's get down to it and talk about optimizing the patient experience. And, I think In the United States, HCAHPS has been around since 2006. In Canada, I know we're constantly wanting to survey patients and get their feedback, and even now these results are published in the United States, and so it does create an increased awareness. I don't know about you when I saw my first patient experience report, but when that first came in, it was an organization-wide code brown moment, and we all became focused real quick. But this ongoing dilemma, it almost becomes like alarm fatigue, where we're constantly hearing about, well, we need to be focused on patient experience. Here's what we did last month, and it becomes kind of a repetitive routine. So the reality of it is, patient experience is not going anywhere, nor should it go anywhere, because that should be top of mind. But how do we optimize that experience? And so we're going to have a conversation today talking about, listening to data to complement your conversations with your patient. And so that's where we're going to go today. So we're going to look at a little drill down here and get a little specific. And so what I pulled is the dimension scores of a group of regional hospitals. And so we can see, and I rank them by base scores. And so critical alert, what we like to do, we involve our clients is take a look at the data and look at maybe say we're hospital E, and we can see we need to look at maybe nursing dimension score improvement, doctor score, definitely need to make some enhancements there, and our discharge we need to improve upon. And in HCAHPS, I know we can look at earning points either based upon improvement points or achievement. And certainly what we like to get focused is on the lower dimension scores and focus on improvement points, so we don't worry about benchmarking higher scores with others. So consequently, we can move our base rate more quickly because we're earning points based upon improvement based upon our prior scores. So that's an area where we like to be focused when we work with our clients. And in Canada, what we would do with our hospitals up there is we would look at your survey results, and it would say, which ones need particular focus, and then target those, because you can't address everything at once. It would overwhelm the organization. Along those lines, I know some of our participants today are maybe with systems, multiple hospital systems. And so what I did is pull down from CMS some dimension scores of this particular system. And so we can see on the right here their base scores, how they're doing there. We can see that really we have three dimensions we probably should be focused on. The hospital staff dimension, care transition, and cleanliness and quietness. And so, from at least my experience from a system standpoint, when I was at Nuterra, we're always looking for opportunities to say, what can we replicate in our hospitals to enhance the whole organization? And so, quite frankly, all I did to help with this particular system would be to just do the sum of the dimensions, and that tells us, where we really should be focused. So, that's what I like, just to look at data and listen to our data, because it'll give you some insights. So, let's drill down into the patient experience. And I like to think about it from a three-dimension standpoint. And so we want to be impacted. We want to impact that patient, and we need to identify the patients that are not happy from the data. And certainly that's from rounding. And I would suggest that unhappy patients is a reflection of the level of engagement. Are we having a quality engagement with that patient? It's just not the convenience issues. It's, are we emotionally engaged with that particular patient? And so the second dimension that we like is being data-driven. And this is probably one of the most unique attributes when I first got exposed to Aperum, is that we use analytics from qualitative data sources, i.e. the voice of the patient, and quantitative data, and from nurse call systems and other systems. We'll talk about those in a moment. Because I don't know about you, but there are times when I was rounding with patients that when I went into a room the first time, I hadn't sensed that they were not comfortable and sharing a whole lot with me. And so if I had that sense with a patient, I would go back the next day, and obviously I had established rapport the prior day. And so maybe I found something out. I mean, probably the strangest thing I ever had was a patient that had a phobia about plastic hangers. So we went and got wooden hangers for that patient's closet. It was just weird, but it made that patient happy. And I'm sure we could also share some interesting stories from rounding experiences. But my point is, the quantitative data, as you can see here, can be some good indicators that we may need to dig deeper. And then naturally, the third experience, if we're going to make the dimension, if we're going to make an impact on the experience, is it has to work with our caregivers to get the workflow. It cannot be viewed as a hassle. It has to be viewed as meaningful. And I want to take a look at this data. I need to see where I need to go, because we all know that we have limited time and resources with our patients, so we need to focus. Where do we need to go? So how do we take this qualitative and quantitative data and put it together? And so this is a little graphical representation. So we connect into a critical alert with Aperum. We connect into a nurse call system. We can connect into telemetry systems, get advisory alerts, critical alerts or indication of activity, location engagement using RTLS. How many times are we're getting our nurses are being called on their mobile phones. And then, of course, safety alerts, i.e. bed exit alarms, what frequency we have going on. So these are some of the quantitative data aspects that we pull from Aperum. And then we get the voice of the patient. And I'll share with you in a little bit our the rounding app, where we ask the patients regarding their satisfaction of care. And then what we do with Aperum, just showing high level real quick, is we put it all together, and so you can quickly identify where we need to be focused. So I'm going to jump into Aperum, into a demonstration here for you. So we've just gone into Aperum, and Aperum, you may be wondering, what does that stand for? And so that means to reveal. It's Latin to reveal. And so what we're doing in the command center, the nice thing is about Aperum is we can manage to the moment. So we can see quickly here what we're doing in this particular screen is looking at nurse call activity. And so we can look at it from 12-hour, 1 hour, 3 hour, whatever increment you want to pick and choose there. And so if I were looking at it from a multiple hospital system standpoint, we've got 2 hospitals. And you can see that we have high activity on our med-surg unit. So we can see that the patient request rate, per hour, what we've been incurring. And the nice thing is I like about Aperum is if you forget what the data is telling you what it stands for, which is critical to know, you can hover over it and it kind of tells you what that indication is. So this is escalation, when it's rolled over to the secondary caregiver, and when we've gone overtime for the past 12 hours, that's the window we're looking at. How many times if a nurse call went into overtime mode in terms of not responding and the parameters that we determined for this particular unit. So that's where we kind of like to start to get a sense. And so Lead It is our module in Aperum, where we can drill down and look at both the rounding responses and the analytics from the nurse call systems, all the data sources that's feeding Aperum. So we're going to go to our med-surg unit, and we can also do a variety of rounding. So we're not limited to one survey. We can do it, specialize it on, and get a unit. I know I was reading in Canada that there's been a concern about readmissions, and we have a discharge survey instrument we use on discharge to make sure that patients are comfortable to know that knowing what's going on. But today we're going to be focused on leadership rounding. And so we just went to our med-surg unit and just waiting to populate here. And so what we're looking here is a heat map. And so we can see from activity, we're color-coded in terms of high activity, with bad responses, good activity. We're getting a sense of all that's happening. We're collecting the voice of the patient responses with the thumbs up. We're collecting safety information for the past 12 hours, workload data, for the past 12 hours. And so we can quickly see, what's happening with our given patients. And so what we also do with our algorithms that we do is we can go in here and say, all right, which patients do we need to focus on? So this is when I had one of my aha moments when I first saw Aperum. Is my code word used to be when I was rounding in hospital, as I'm going after my 4th box of chocolates because I walk in the room. We all know you don't know what you're going to get in terms of a response. And so when I saw this, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. This is my 4th box of chocolates. And guess what patients we need to focus on? Because I think we all know what HCAHPS. I was very frustrated over the years. I'd get a report, it's based 4 weeks, 6 weeks after discharge, and it's too late to anything. But we're looking at real-time satisfaction indicators, both from voice of the patient and nurse call data. And so the other thing that we have, so if our particular hospital is focused on one of our dimensions with nurse care, we can see at the moment in staff responsiveness, those two dimensions, we are below our goal right now. So again, how do we move the needle? Is by knowing information so we can take action. And so that's the nice thing about Aperum and managing HCAHPS and current patient satisfaction, knowing where we need to be focused, because it tells us that. So let's take a look at Mrs. Henry. And so we're going to take a look at her metrics. So with Aperum, we pull from either from a middleware system or nurse call, and we can get the analytics, the demographic profile information. And so we can see from Lead It, and we're going to the rounding questions in a moment, but based upon her stay, Mrs. Henry is saying, you're not doing a good job. I'm below goal where we need to be. But when I look at the data, this nurse call data, the patient request rate, the wait time, the critical request rate, I mean, we're looking green, we're looking good there. And so, you know, a lot of patient consultant experts and Studer and such those would say, we have a misconnection here. And so that's where I like the power of quantitative and qualitative data, bringing it together to maybe give us a different perception of what's happening. Because if I would have just had just the voice of the patient below goal, I had to work on it. But the problem's a little more concerning because guess what? We're being responsive in nurse call. And so we can drill down and look at previous comments regarding rounding situations occurred. And we're going to get a little bit of the data specifics here. So we can see that Mrs. Henry was originally in 412. The asterisks stand for bed exit alarms. And then we have the normal alert right here. So we can see that our patient, so if I'm Annie Kennedy getting ready to round on Mrs. Henry, I'm saying, wow, she's been non-compliant before, moved to our triangle means transferring to the unit. And so we can kind of see continuing to have a series of bed non-compliant issues of getting out of bed. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to Mrs. Henry and say, hey, Mrs. Henry, you know, I've been checking up on here we are, we're doing okay, we're taking care of you, we're meeting your expectations. And so maybe Mrs. Henry says, yeah, you are. Yeah, I'm feeling better about it now. And so, you know, we document that. And so my patient care technician and myself, we, you know, have your requests, have done that in a timely fashion to get the water quickly, to get the additional food items you want. Certainly. And so then she asked about the pain. And then maybe Annie Kennedy says, well, you know, tell me about your pain. And she may notice that Mrs. Henry starts saying, you know, you were just coaching me about not getting out of bed. And the reason is I'm getting out of bed is because the pain meds are not working and I have to get out of bed. And I didn't want to trouble you because I know we've all had patients who may not tell us the truth of what's really happening with them. And so, you know, that's one of the benefits of Aperum and looking at the data and giving some cues of where we need to maybe inquire our questions. So we can say no, and so we could go down here and document that patient needs the RX consult for new pain meds. So, you know, that is the relevancy and the power of looking at quantitative and qualitative and quantitative data together. So let's back up here now. And so we've kind of seen from the unit level what's happening, but we also provide personal care performance metrics for individual caregivers. So we're going to go into Rounded. And so what you're seeing here is the unit view, but what we provide to the caregivers in Rounded is personal care metrics. And so you can see real quick right here that we can, Annie Kennedy, that during her current shift, this is the request rate. We can see the critical request rate. So everything's green, looking good. You know, she's going to go in and talk to Mrs. Henry. She's assigned her, and so we can see what's been happening since the start of her shift, continuing the bed exit alarms. And so that's where we could go in and have that conversation and say we talked about pain, and we talked about, you know, about bathroom assistance and positioning in bed. The other thing we do with a care, let me see what's this disqualifying for in the corner. If Mrs. Henry was out, and so we would say click that, so we would know that that we attempted to round it, but she wasn't available. So this is what we provide to the individual caregivers so they can be focused on their particular patients. We're going to go into View It. And so View It is where we're collecting a lot of the metrics from the nurse call system. So we were focused on our med-surg unit, and we're still looking at, so we want to look at the 12-hour window, and so we can refresh that unit and kind of see what's going on here. So the reason I look at view it, and it's important, I think, in terms of having to optimize the patient experience references, we can kind of see, real quick what's happening on this particular unit. So it's color-coded based on the activity. We can see for the past 12 hours, what the request rate for this unit has been, the patient wait time, the critical request rate, and the interruption rate. And so we scroll down in Aperum, and so I'm looking at the graph here. You can kind of see what's most active, what's happening with our alerts and from the nurse call system, and we can see like here's a normal alert, and that's going to be your most common you're going to see. But it would be concerning to me if if this were my hospital, I'd say we got a lot of dead exit alarms going off on this particular unit. So we need to figure out what's going on there, because that's not a good situation from a safety standpoint. So we scroll down, and this is, I'm sure you're looking at this and like, oh my goodness, the busy screen. But really, our users of the system, they understand the symbology really quick. And what's probably catching your eye is looking at ring 220, 221, and 222. And so we can quickly assess there and see that we've got patients are non-compliant getting out of bed. And so typically, I don't know about your hospitals, but we would typically assign our patients and our caregiver team back-to-back rooms to make it more easier to render care without walking a whole lot. But I want to make sure that I would not want to assign the same caregiver team to these 3 rooms, because these patients are very, very busy and being non-compliant because of they're reading the nurse call all the time and the bed exit alarms are going off. It's just not an ideal situation. So we need to be cognizant of that. And, I learned a long time ago that happy nurses always result in happy patients. And so, we need to reassign our care teams based upon the activity that we're seeing here. So that's what we're seeing in View-It. And I'm just touching on some of the modules. The last one I'm going to touch on with you today is Trended. And so that's our kind of on-demand report system. So we're going to, so we were just looking at nurse call data. And so we want to see what's happening with the normal and overtime alerts. And we're looking at all our units and say we want to look at the past 14 days because our HCAHPS score said we needed to improve there a little bit in responsiveness. So we can now look at all my units, what's happening. And so we're seeing that we've got 48% normal overtime going on out of 674 total nurse calls for all the units. And so what's important about Aperum is, yes, it's to look at the unit specifics, but if I were wanting to manage the unit and move the needle, it should do a unit by unit analysis. So we can quickly see what's happening, so we can see what's happening that, of our 684 nurse calls, we only, 94 were here and only 6.7 were overtime for the 14-day period. That's nice thing. We can change those parameters. And so if we can take a look at one more unit, let's take a look at med-surg. And so, wow, of the 600 and some nurse calls, this unit is getting by far the most of them, and they're having a high count of overtime. So that's where I would say I need to drill down and talk to you and see if we need to provide some more resources there. So this is, obviously we're looking at quantitative data here, but going back to when we saw Lead It, when we merged it all together. And so if we want to continue to stay focused on nursing care comments, and we want to look for the past 14 days. And so we want to look, how are we doing on all our units to start? And so we can take a quick peek and get a sense, what's happening. So our overall positive response rate is 65.6. And we have some tapering going on here. So since we're focused on our med-surg unit because they had high activity, let's just drill down there and see how we're doing with that. So we'll go down to med-surg. And so, our goal is 74. And we can quickly count and see what's happening, that we've only had 1, 2, 3, 4 to 14 days where our patients have verbalized us, we're not not satisfied with positive responses or high enough based upon our conversations with the patient. So that's a very important piece, that real-time quality indicators of what's happening in my particular organization. So that's what we do in Aperum in terms of kind of the high-level demo I wanted to provide to you today and give you a sense of what we can really provide. And so let's go back into the PowerPoint to kind of wrap things up here a little bit. So now we want to take a view of this particular hospital, the HCAHPS. And so we can see this particular one, that the dimension score on nursing needs improvement, the doctor score, and the discharge information. We need to make some improvements. And then the overall score is 2 out of 10, which is concerning, obviously. So what do we do? How does Aperum connect to these dimensions? And so regarding the nursing dimensions, certainly the rounding questions, we're going to be asking questions regarding that through the qualitative data. Then the quantitative data, from view it and trend it and all the nurse call activity, that's going to give us good information telling us what's happening. From the doctor's rounding, we can customize the question. And so we're going to add, for this particular hospital, some rounding questions regarding the doctor's perception of care by the patients, while the patient's in the hands of our caregivers. And then the discharge information, we're going to implement the discharge survey and make sure that patient repeats back to us to have a good understanding of what's happening. So when they get that survey and they get home, they go, you know what, I'm going to remember when Amy Kennedy went through the survey and went through everything. I think they did a good job on that. So we're kind of helping set the stage so they can recall events, meaningful events, when they get the survey response. And then certainly the overall rating of the hospital, the patient hot list that we saw and leave it. I mean, that's where we need to be focused to tell us, which patients we really need to be focused on from that particular standpoint. So that's, you could collect all this data by yourself, but what we do in Aperum is actually we bring it all together. We talked about the rounding it, so we're getting the voice of the patient. You saw the safety information for bed exit alarms. Yes, you could run a bed exit alarm, but it'd be a very difficult process to put that all together. And then we're telling you how you're doing on key dimensions. So that is real-time, real meaningful, powerful information so you can manage to the moment instead of being reactive with discharge patient experience information. So we talked a lot about the technology, but probably the thing that I got most excited about when I first was exposed to Aperum was that it comes with Blueprint services. And so we assign a person to your team who will work with your organization on an ongoing basis to help make that leap of what's the data telling us. And so we develop relationships, we identify opportunities for improvements, we look at how we're going to drive adoption. And then we have regular meetings at a variety of levels to discuss the performance and set goals. So I'm going to drill down into one particular hospital result. So we were reviewing one of their objectives was to improve the communications about meds. And so we can see at the first quarter 2019, we started out at 52. And then we got up to 61.3, 62.4, and now we've dropped down to 55. So what we would do as part of our Blue Band service, we would be coaching, saying we need to do some different things. So we may want to institute a survey question regarding, about your current meds while they're currently, in the hands of the caregiver. Add that to the rounding question. Say, how are we doing with your meds? Do you have an understanding of how they're impacting you? Are you seeing a difference? And so add it to our survey instrument. So when it's on our survey instrument, that means that'll coach our clinicians to take action on that when it's listed, as a survey instrument. And then again, in terms of managing the needle, it may be just one unit we need to be focused on. And so that's the benefit of Aperum is just because we have one problem in press gaming or in discharge HCAHPS report in a given area, we can now with Aperum identify where we need to be focused on which unit. So here's another example of improving the patient experience in terms of a measurement with our Blue Band service. And so here's, our goal was to hit 80%. And so what we did in this particular organization, the leader of that organization, got their face when they achieved the 80% or higher. And I think I thought it's very personalized. That's very important to give recognition when we're achieving that particular point. So we have a quote here, some quotes from a hospital recently went on up here in Hanover Region from Julie Lieberens, and I think it's just having somebody teamed up with them. I know when you get exposed to patient experience and looking at reports and data, we have a tendency to get a little blind-eyed. So difficult to see the forest from the trees concept. So having a fresh set of eyes can help you with Blue Pan service, make a difference. And with Blue Pan service, if you have a change in leadership or a new caregiver or a charge unit, you don't have to worry about IT having to come up and train somebody on this. That's part of our Blue Pan service is the ongoing support and understanding of what Aperum is. So the IT folks really like when we're providing that level of service with Aperum. And so we've done some case studies, and you can see, we've had some very positive results, with Aperum, using the collaborative approach in partnership with the technology. And so I think as you're getting just of the message here is we look at this, individual opportunities to help drive that overall patient domain score. I think too often we can get focused on just that overall base score and not say, well, we got to do better. But with Aperum, we try and say, well, how do we get better and how do we measure it? And I think you can certainly see the merits of how we can make that happen. So I want to regress here and kind of wrap up here with some thought leadership concepts regarding patient experience I wanted to put out there for you today. And this was reading an article, The Future of Nursing Leadership by Linda Burns-Bolton. She's the VP of Nursing at Cedars-Sinai. And I found this very intriguing. Nursing profession is about caring for that one individual at a time. And then it's a sequential type of caring. I go to this patient, I do this, I go to the next patient. Leadership, however, is not sequential, and look at the whole team. And so whenever I would read articles like this, I would say, how would I apply that to my organization? I think the message from Linda here is multifaceted. Certainly, if we have new, younger leaders we're trying to develop and mentor, realize they're used to caring for one individual at a time. It's a whole different metric for, being in leadership when you're looking at a whole team. So when I read this article, I thought, well, how does Aperum support Linda's very good points here? And so I was thinking about the sequential view. And we saw the personal care metrics around it. So for Annie Kennedy. And so Annie can now, at this point, see what are her metrics, as you saw in the previous demo, and say, oh, you know what? I need to go focus on Ryan West. So again, the caregiver view is focused at one individual at a time. And so I think that's how Aperum, would support Linda's quotes here. And then from the team standpoint, certainly I think you saw from the high level, and read it and view it where, we're getting a good sense of what's happening with our units and which units we need to provide focus on. So that's how I kind of saw how that article is coming together. But it's interesting, when we talk to hospitals and all the years that collectively we've all been visiting with patients, and now with HCAHPS, I know it's many times I think it's a tendency to say, well, have you completed your round today? What's our rounds compliance report? How are we doing there? And, I think what's probably the message that we're trying to do with Aperum is at the end of the day, it's about, was I 100% on my compliance on rounding, or did I have a connected loving moment with that patient? If this were Annie Kennedy and talking to Mrs. Henry, and we had that aha moment about the pain, the reason I'm getting out of bed. And so when the charge nurse goes to ask Annie Kennedy, so you had any connecting loving moments today? And she can share the story about Mrs. Henry and the pain meds and why she's getting out of bed. Those prove and talk about engagement. Engagement results in happy patients. And using quantitative and qualitative data, that's how we put it together. And so, I'd just like to suggest that, it's about improving the patient experience, optimizing it. And my reference here is, and has been. Patient experience is first in mind, but it's not going away. But what can we do as caregivers? And so, I think we can provide them the tools, to focus on the dimensions to make a difference. We use Aperum to provide the data. I kind of look at Aperum as the blood pressure cuff of patient experience, where, quality and quantitative data, systolic and systolic, blood pressure measures, we're putting that all together to give us an indication of what's happening to our patients. And so, that's our message today that we want to provide to you regarding Aperum being provided by Critical Alert. And that kind of wraps up my presentation today, and I'd be very interested in some questions.
The first question, Rod, was how do you implement Aperum and how long does it take?
So, the nice thing about Aperum is that the implementation is usually 90 to 120 days. It's not a significant undertaking. It's sitting down with the nursing staff. Let's look at those dimension scores. Let's determine our priorities. Let's look at the questions. And when we launch Aperum initially, we just are focused on the unit performance metrics, not the individual care metrics. And so we usually, have it done in place in 90 to 120 days. And it's really not that overwhelming. It's more of a training issue that takes more time than anything else.
Screenshot of the other one.
Another question that we have is we've got a couple questions around this, is that they don't have Critical Alert nurse call. Can they still use Aperum?
Absolutely. So what we do is, we can take, depending on the nurse call system, we can have Aperum feed it, or where we can connect into middleware technology and have that feed Aperum. So, by all means, we have other nurse call systems that we're connected to. So, from a nurse call perspective, we're agnostic in that concern. So that's not a restriction at all, being not a Critical Alert nurse call system. But certainly when we're doing the data mapping and we're looking at some things, we can see that, we can also be collecting alarm alerts analytics, into Aperum. We can also look at specific reports regarding bedside reporting and time of response time. We can drill down into a given patient and track that down. So we can look at a variety of alarm fatigue issues because have all this data feeding Aperum. And with our consulting expertise of our team, we can benchmark what we've done in other hospitals on performance indicators or workflow indication. It's probably just as important in the consulting piece and implementation is, as I mentioned, is one of the dimensions is what is that workflow that's done, by the caregivers to make it easier. And so we do provide, information regarding safety alerts, alarm fatigue. That's just natural information that we can create reports because of the holistic approach of the data model that Aperum provides.
Looks like one final question. How quickly can we anticipate seeing an improvement in our base scores?
Oh, my. Well, I can guarantee you results in, I'm not going to say we can guarantee results by any means, but, typically we're going to start seeing results, in 6 months. I mean, it's, after you implement, you got the 90-day of kind of getting used to it, and then you get the 90-day, I'm getting the impact of how it's working with my workflow. We're getting feedback, and that's the important piece of Aperum, is how we improve that base score is getting the real-time performance improvements that Aperum can reveal to you in terms of how we've done for the past day on this particular metric. And so that's how we move the needle to move that base score because, we're very tactical in our measurements, but strategic in our results and impacting that overall score. So, you always have to hear you walk it before you run. Well, we need to measure and in order to see success, find metrics so we can move the needle big picture.